Welcome to the Bromley Adult Education College Digital Drop-In Podcast, getting you back to work with confidence.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jill Collier, and today we're talking about something that can feel quite difficult in an interview, explaining redundancy. If you've recently been made redundant, it can really knock your confidence. Even when you know it was a business decision and not a reflection of your work, it can still feel very personal. You might worry that an employer will judge you. You might wonder whether a few months out of work makes your experience seem less valuable. Or you might simply feel unsure how to talk about what happened without sounding apologetic. But redundancy is not failure. It happens for all sorts of reasons: restructuring, budget cuts, departments closing, or businesses changing direction. Good, capable people are made redundant every day. What matters in an interview is not pretending it did not happen. It is learning how to explain it clearly, calmly, and confidently. In this episode, we're going to listen to two versions of the same interview moment. Let's meet Carl, who has applied for a new role after being made redundant, and Sarah, the HR manager at a local Bromley firm. In the first version, Carl is honest, but he sounds unsure of himself. He has good experience, but he does not quite help the employer see it. In the second version, he answers the same questions with more confidence, more structure, and a clearer link to the role he wants next. Let's start with the question many people dread. Can you tell me why you left your last job?
Right, Carl, thanks for coming in today. I've had a look through your CV. I can see you were with your previous employer for quite a long time, but your role ended earlier this year. Can you tell me why you left?
Yes, I was made redundant, unfortunately.
Okay, why was that?
I think they were cutting costs. There were quite a few of us, actually. It wasn't just me.
Right. And how long have you been out of work now?
About 5 months.
5 months. What have you been doing during that time?
Mainly applying for jobs. It's been a bit difficult, to be honest. I haven't really had much luck. I've had a few interviews, but nothing has come of them.
Why do you think that is?
I don't really know. Maybe because I'd been in the same job for quite a long time. I think employers are maybe looking for people with more recent experience or different skills.
This role does involve using online systems and dealing with customers quite quickly. How confident would you be with that?
I mean, I use systems in my last job, but probably not the same ones. I might need a bit of training. I haven't worked for a few months, so I suppose I'm a bit rusty.
Okay, and what would you say you can bring to this role?
Well, I'm reliable. I worked for my last employer for 12 years, so I do stick at things. I'm willing to learn. I just need someone to give me a chance, really.
Right, thank you.
Now, there's a lot in that answer that many people will recognise. Carl was honest. He did not say anything wrong. He did not invent anything. And actually, there were some strong points in there. He had worked for the same employer for 12 years. That suggests reliability, commitment, experience, and resilience. But the problem is that Carl did not really help Sarah, the employer, see his strengths. Instead, he sounded a little bit apologetic. He used phrases like, I haven't really had much luck. I might need a bit of training. I suppose I'm a bit rusty, and I just need someone to give me a chance. Now, those phrases are understandable. When you've been made redundant, especially after a long time in one workplace, your confidence can take a real knock. You may feel grateful just to be interviewed. You may feel that you need to explain yourself. But in an interview, your job is not to apologise for what happened. Your job is to show what you can offer next. There are 3 things to notice from that first version. First, Carl let the redundancy become the main story. Second, he described his job search in a way that made him sound discouraged. And third, he mentioned his skills, but only in very general terms. Saying, "I'm reliable" is fine, but it is much stronger when you can prove it. For example, Carl could say, "I worked for the same organisation for 12 years, met deadlines, supported customers, helped colleagues, and adapted to changes in systems and processes." That gives the employer evidence. So let's look at how someone can approach this better. If you are asked why you left your last job, you do not need to give a long explanation. You can keep it clear and factual. A simple structure can help. First, explain the situation briefly. For example, "My role was made redundant following a restructure." That is enough. You do not need to go into office politics, frustration, or every detail of what happened. Second, reassure the employer. You might say it was a business decision affecting a number of roles rather than a performance issue. Again, that keeps it factual and professional. Third, move the answer forward. This is the most important part. You want to bring the conversation back to your experience, your skills, and your interest in the role. For example, "Since then, I've been updating my CV, refreshing my digital skills, and applying for roles where my customer service and administration experience would be useful." That answer does not hide the redundancy, but it also does not get stuck there. The other thing to think about is how you talk about the time since redundancy. If you say, "I've just been applying for jobs," it can sound passive, even if you have actually been working very hard. Instead, you might say, "Since being made redundant, I've been actively job searching, updating my CV, improving my digital skills, and thinking carefully about the kind of role where I can use my experience well." That sounds much more purposeful. And if you have taken a course, attended a workshop, volunteered, practiced interview questions, updated your LinkedIn profile, or learned to use new software, mention it. These things matter because they show that you are active, engaged, and ready. Let's build a stronger answer together. Sarah asks, "Can you tell me why you left your last job?" Carl could say, "My role was made redundant after the company restructured. It affected several people across the organisation, so it wasn't connected to my performance. I'd been there for 12 years, and during that time I built strong customer service, administration, and problem-solving skills. Since leaving, I've been using the time to update my CV, refresh my digital skills, and focus on finding a role where I can bring that experience into a new team." That answer does several things. It explains what happened, it removes doubt, it reminds the employer of Carl's experience, and it shows that he is looking forward. It is also calm. That matters. You do not need to sound perfect. You do not need to pretend redundancy was easy, but you do want to sound steady, capable, and ready to work. Now let's hear that interview again. Same candidate, same situation, same brisk employer, but this time Carl has prepared. Listen out for 3 things. He keeps the explanation brief. He gives evidence. And he brings the answer back to the job.
Right, Carl, thanks for coming in today. I've had a look through your CV. I can see you were with your previous employer for quite a long time, but your role ended earlier this year. Can you tell me why you left?
Yes, of course. My role was made redundant following a restructure. A number of roles were affected, so it wasn't related to my performance. I'd been with the organisation for 12 years, and I left with strong experience in customer service administration and working with internal systems.
And how long have you been out of work now?
About 5 months.
What have you been doing during that time?
I've been actively looking for the right role, but I've also used the time to update my CV, practice interview skills, and refresh my digital confidence. After being in one workplace for a long time, I realised it was important to look carefully at how my skills transfer into a new setting.
What do you mean by that?
In my previous role, I dealt with customers every day, handled queries, updated records, followed procedures, and worked to deadlines. I also helped newer staff understand the systems we used, so although I may need to learn your specific processes, I'm used to picking up systems, staying organised, and dealing with people professionally.
This role can be quite fast-paced. Sometimes customers are frustrated. How would you handle that?
That was a regular part of my previous job. I found the most useful approach was to stay calm, listen properly, and make sure I understood the issue before trying to resolve it. If I couldn't solve something straight away, I'd explain the next step clearly and follow it up. I think customers respond better when they feel someone is taking ownership.
You mentioned refreshing your digital skills. How confident are you with online systems?
I'm confident with the basics and I'm comfortable learning new systems. In my last role, I used internal databases, email, online forms, and shared documents. Since being made redundant, I've been making sure my skills are up to date, especially around online applications and using digital tools for job searching.
And why this role?
I'm looking for a role where I can use the experience I already have, particularly customer service, organisation and problem solving, but also keep learning. I enjoyed being part of a team in my last job, and after the redundancy, I'm ready to bring that same commitment into a new workplace.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
That was a much stronger answer. And notice the facts did not change. Carl was still made redundant. He was still out of work for 5 months. He would still need to learn the new employer's systems. But the way he presented those facts changed completely. In the first version, Carl sounded as though the redundancy had reduced his confidence and perhaps even his value. In the second version, he gave Sarah a clear, professional explanation and then moved the conversation towards his skills. He did not criticise his previous employer. He did not over-explain. He did not apologise. And he did not say, "I just need someone to give me a chance." Instead, he gave evidence. He talked about customer service, administration, systems, deadlines, helping colleagues, staying calm, and taking ownership. That is what employers need to hear. One of the best things you can do before an interview is prepare your redundancy explanation in advance. Not a script that you memorise word for word, because that can sound unnatural, but a clear version of the story that you can say calmly. Try this sentence starter. My role was made redundant because, then add, it wasn't related to my performance. Then, since then, I've been, and finally, what I can bring to this role is, let's put that together. My role was made redundant because the company restructured. It wasn't related to my performance, and I left with strong experience in customer service and administration. Since then, I've been updating my skills and looking for a role where I can contribute to a team again. What I can bring to this role is reliability, experience with customers, and a calm approach to solving problems. That is clear, it is honest, and it moves forward. And if you are listening to this and preparing for interviews, here is a short exercise you can do. Take a piece of paper or use the Notes app on your phone and write down 4 headings. The first heading is, what happened? Keep this factual. For example, my role was made redundant after a restructure. The second heading is, what did I do well in my last role? This might include supporting customers, organising information, managing stock, working with children, handling cash, answering phones, using systems, solving problems, or helping colleagues. The third heading is, what have I done since leaving? This could be job searching, updating your CV, taking a course, practicing digital skills, volunteering, attending interviews, or thinking seriously about your next step. And the fourth heading is, what can I bring to the next employer? This is where you choose 3 strengths, for example, reliability, patience, organisation, communication, attention to detail, teamwork, practical experience, or willingness to learn. Once you have those notes, practice saying your answer out loud. It may feel strange at first. Most people do not naturally talk about themselves in this way, but practice helps. The goal is not to sound rehearsed. Rather, the goal is to stop the question from catching you off guard. And remember, a good interview answer is not always the longest answer. It is usually the clearest one. Before we finish, let's quickly look at a few common mistakes people make when talking about redundancy. The first is over-explaining. You do not need to give the interviewer the full history of the organisation, the management changes, the unfairness of the decision, or every conversation that happened at the time. Even if it was upsetting, try to keep the interview answer professional and focused. The second is sounding apologetic. Try to avoid phrases like, I was only made redundant. I've just been looking for work. I suppose I'm a bit out of practice. I just need someone to take a chance on me. They are understandable, but they can make you sound less confident than you are. The third is forgetting your value. If you work somewhere for 10, 15 or 20 years, that matters. You have experience. You have dealt with people, routines, problems, systems, and change. Even if the workplace has changed since you last applied for jobs, your core skills may still be very relevant. The fourth is not preparing for follow-up questions. A brisk interviewer may ask, why do you think you haven't found something yet? Are your skills up to date? Will you need a lot of training? How do we know you'll adapt? These questions can feel uncomfortable, but they are manageable if you prepare. For example, if asked whether your skills are up to date, you might say, I know workplaces keep changing, especially around digital systems. I'm confident with the basics, and I'm actively refreshing my skills. I'm also used to learning new processes, and I'm comfortable asking the right questions so I can get up to speed quickly. That is much stronger than saying, I'm not sure, I might be rusty. So if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Redundancy is something that happened to you. It is not the whole story of what you can offer. You can explain it briefly, you can talk about it professionally, and then you can move the conversation towards your skills, your experience, and your next step. If you live locally and would like support returning to work, Bromley Adult Education College, also known as BAEC, offers free Prepare for Work courses and employability support for residents. These courses can help with CV writing, interview techniques, job search strategies, and confidence building. There may also be free childcare support available. BAEC also offers digital skills, English and maths courses, which can be especially helpful if you are applying for jobs online or returning to learning after some time away. To find out more, visit our website baec.ac.uk. I'm Jill Collier, and thank you for listening.
This podcast has been produced by Jill Collier for Bromley Adult Education College. For help with all your job searching needs, do visit one of our digital drop-in venues. Our free sessions are advertised on our website at www.baec.ac.uk or telephone 0208 659 7976. We offer free use of computers for job searching, advice on creating a winning CV, plus lots of short training courses to gain skills in the digital world. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to receive notifications of new episodes.